Hello and welcome to the show. Now, cars like this Chevrolet Bel Air are not exactly the first vehicles you think of if you were to think of race cars. However, here at FailRace, we do tend to like to go racing with the vehicles that, well, you don't normally see racing. So we decided to get a lobby together of these giant American landships and see how they would fare. Now, each of them were upgraded to C-Class, so you could get a decent amount of handling and some power parts and so on in the vehicles. We started off at Laguna Seca. Now, we did go racing like this in Forza 4. It was a lot of fun, so hoping it would carry on to 6. Off the start line, and well, immediately before we even got to the first braking zone, people were trying to go 4 wide. That's not a place you normally see 4 cars wide, but everybody got through. There was a little bit of bumping, trying to get everybody stopped, and I think a few cars did escape onto the sand on the outside there, but on the whole, despite being 3 and 4 wide throughout the field in huge vehicles, everybody made it through, and then we were immediately back to going 3 and almost 4 wide into the next corner. This is an awful lot of metal trying to fit into a very small piece of racetrack there, but somehow cars were on the most part making it through. A sideways Mercury struggling for traction kind of pings off the door of a Bel Air, gets himself into a bit of trouble across the sand, but amazingly everybody was making it through. It was a rather chaotic opening lap with everybody trying to shuffle around and make up positions, but the racing was pretty good. Up ahead here there's a Country Squire and a Mercury Coupe. We're fighting for position. The Mercury does an almost textbook cutback to get the position. Now the Ford is about to come under threat from the Plymouth Fury. The Fury having a look first, thinking about the outside, and while in general the Country Squires did struggle a little bit here, they didn't struggle enough for the Plymouth to be able to make that particular manoeuvre stick. One thing we were finding as well, that overtaking with these vehicles was proving a little bit difficult. Even if you had a slightly faster car, you were struggling to find ways to get past. Just the sheer size of these cars, the length, the width, the amount of road they took up. Getting an overtake done was a little bit on the difficult side. The Bel Air here very much thought about getting up the inside of the Fury, but didn't quite fancy his chances. He couldn't really put it far enough alongside to make a pass stick. That is a tough overtaking spot. And you can see how just that little exchange lets the Country Squire escape. At the front, I was running in second with a very, very fast Bel Air. This might be my new C-Class car of choice, this vehicle. It's phenomenally quick, was actually really quite good through the corners as well, which was surprising. I was putting a lot of pressure on a Fury up ahead, but I could not find a way past. He was defending well, and as I said, these cars were hard to find a way to get past. As we come up towards the final corner, he runs it in a little bit too deep. I'm going for a cutback on the exit as we go side by side down the start-finish straight. His Plymouth was a little bit quicker than my Chevy. However, I was pretty good under brakes. I was hoping to get the move done up the inside into turn 1. Unfortunately, I left it a little bit too late, couldn't get things stopped, and ended up on the sand. My best overtaking opportunity of the race, and I slightly squandered it with pushing my luck a little too hard under braking there as an Impala and a Ford get a little bit tangled up in the background there. Further back in the field, as I said, it was very much a very large train of cars, but nobody was really finding ways to overtake vehicles. This is a huge group of cars that were circulating. Most of them were beige as well. People seem to like to go for the, for the beige paints on these. But yeah, getting overtakes done, just no one was really finding ways past. Laguna can at times be a little bit more of a difficult track to overtake on. Certainly there are lots of sort of relatively fast corners where there's only little bits of braking required. I mean, nobody really wants to have a dive up the inside at the corkscrew, especially not in vehicles like these that tend to be a little bit on the more difficult side to drive. And again, around this part of the track, overtakes are few and far between them. You have to be very brave and very confident with your car to get a pass done. I mean, the Plymouth here is looking all over the back of the Impala. Your best bet is in towards this final corner, but there's such a train of cars going on at this stage that if you have a dive at the inside of the car ahead and you get it wrong, you're going to lose 3 or 4 places. So you have to be really confident and really ready, really aware that you could make a dive, make a maneuver stick. nobody could quite get into a position. And after all of that closeness through the final few corners, we get down the straight, everything all spreads out. There's an Impala was looking around the outside of the Fury behind, but wasn't going to quite make that move stick. The Fury's now having a bit of a look up the inside. Actually got a really good run off of that first corner, but then again, there's nowhere to go through this next corner. Further back, it was a similar story. These vehicles were proving very, very tough to find a way past. One thing we did notice, certainly on the most part, the Bel Airs and the Furies were spending a lot of time fighting one another. The Fords, the Country Squire was struggling a little bit with its lack of straight line speed. This turquoise car got a good run out of the first corner, but again, he's just stuck now in an awkward part of the track. He's going to have to try and go around the outside of 2 corners, and these are some of the fastest corners on the track, and nobody quite has the grip and the bravery to get a maneuver to stick around the outside of these corners. And then when you've made this attempt at a pass, you're going to have lost that little bit of time by taking a slightly wonky line. You're going to fall back and have to wait a few corners to get back in position again. And now you see how quickly the Country Squire is caught up as well to this group. At the front, and I had spent the entire race almost trying to find a way past this Plymouth, and just couldn't quite do it. I had again got myself alongside. I wasn't quite as close this time coming in towards turn 1, but I was decent under brakes, so I was going to throw it up the inside anyway. I get it alongside, trying to get past the Plymouth. I almost get it across, but it's not quite enough. The Fury can stay there, and then guess whose turn it is to try and go around the outside of these same 2 corners. I keep it around the outside of the first one, a little bit of a bump between us coming up towards this next corner. I was going to give it a go, but even with my Bel Air, that was a very, very good car, I couldn't quite make it stick around there. The Fury can just slide across in front, and again, I wasn't quite close enough to have a dive under brakes to the next turn, and that is pretty much how my race would go. I threw absolutely everything at the Plymouth and could not find a way past. He did a fantastic job of defending and holding off this Bel Air. We pulled a huge gap back to the rest of the field. Even with us fighting like this, we had really quick cars. Up towards the final turn, I tried to do a cutback, but he covered the inside very, very well. There was just no space for the Bel Air. I would have to settle for a second place to the Fury. A Mercury Coupe would come home in third, a little bit behind us, battling at the front there. Race number 2 would go to the Road America West alternate circuit again. There were fears that turn 1 here might be utter chaos with this rather nasty chicane. But on the most part, everybody made it through here. Right, I think everybody actually made it through the first corner here cleanly, despite there being many tons and a huge amount of metal going down this road. It is, I'll be honest, quite an impressive sight seeing this lot running down this back straight. It was a really rather impressive sight as they all run down towards this big braking zone. You see all manner of cars squirming. I do love that shot, especially in this opening lap when everybody's close together. Just all of the cars squirming and fighting for grip. This Ford is getting mugged by the Impalas, and now a Mercury's having a go up the inside. The Mercury can't quite do it. He's got a weird on the sand as the Plymouth Fury was having a look. Now it's just bumper to bumper with vehicles through here. The cars out wide's got in a lot of trouble. It's going to lose 2 or 3 places. It was so easy to lose huge number of places if you got things wrong when everybody was running this close on the opening lap. You dip a wheel on the sand, you get too much oversteer. Whatever it was, you end up out wide, you're going to get overtaken by a train of cars. So yes, again, some seriously impressive sights of many tons of metal running through these corners. The Country Squires were struggling with some rear end grip. Both of them were sliding, and again we're going to be 3 wide almost. The Plymouth thinking better of that one, which is probably a wise decision, as a few cars get themselves into trouble. The Country Squire here managing to make the most of it, as a few cars were getting tangled up as everybody just concertinated into a hairpin, and well, not quite every single car could have fit in that space of tarmac. Again though, these sights were equally impressive, with still so many cars trying to fit down this back straight. Overtaking was a little easier here at Road America. Still though, on the most part it was, we were seeing cars struggling to make up positions. This Bel Air pretty much backed out of the corner, got swamped by everything, just got himself stuck on 2 tyres for a line, and really didn't fancy having that bigger a tussle. This Plymouth Fury was having a race with the Ford Country Squire. The Ford managing to make a cutback work, got himself back up the inside. The Fury braves across the curves. It's not necessarily a fun place to be going across there. Very easy to bounce and lose control of your car, and even if you do, you're now stuck on the outside through this next corner. The Fury braves it out. The Ford slides, gives the Plymouth a little bit of a tap, but the Fury will be on the inside through the next turn. The Ford, though, gets a good run off the corner. He's going to draw up alongside, but is stuck on the outside for the hairpin. And that's quite a tough place to go around the outside, and in the end the Ford does not quite have the grip to make that one stick, and the Plymouth would move up a position. The midfield in this was really quite close for a large part of this race. This particular Mercury, I'm pretty sure went for a lot more power parts than most of us, was really struggling for grip. An Impala fires his car up the inside around this very long corner, gets the position. The Mercury then gets a big oversteer moment, is incredibly sideways across the grass, very nearly collects another Mercury that had visited the sand trap through there, just about manages to rein it all back under control. If you went a little crazy with the build for these cars, it was possible to, get things wrong. Certainly, if you went for too much power, they could be a little bit of a handful. And still, there were these decent-sized group of cars fighting amongst themselves. This time, two Impalas having a go down the back straight. The car on the outside is going to sweep around and just about manage to hold on to the position there. That is a interesting place to go around the outside of that corner, certainly. The Impalas were struggling a little bit for pace. They certainly seem to be struggling a little bit for pace. The Furies could be pretty quick, as could the Bel Airs. We didn't see that many Impalas running towards the front, although admittedly in a race like this where there's so much going on, they could well have just got caught up with traffic. These two Furies were having a good race. I had dropped back through the field after I made a mistake trying to pass for the lead, so I was now frantically working my way through with a very quick Chevy. We have someone going for the very brave and can't quite make it stick around the outside of that incredibly long corner. In the end, cuts back to the inside for the exit, will draw up alongside, but then you've got to come towards this very nasty chicane. I mean, the more they fight, the better off I am, certainly. Let these guys slow one another down. It lets me and a Ford Country Squire catch up to this battling group. They remain side by side all the way through the chicane while the purple Bel Air is recovering. Again, ignore the lagged out ghost cars. That's just, well, Forza for you. Both the Furies very evenly matched for straight line speed down here. I managed to breeze past Ford Country Squires. They were struggling on the hold for that straight line speed. In the end, the red Plymouth got himself stuck on the outside and wasn't able to hold off this particular car any longer. At the front, though, it was a Fury that would go on to take victory in this on the same car that won at Laguna. Got himself to the lead after I'd made my mistake trying to get past and vanished off at the front. Would have liked to have had another race with him around here to see if I could have found a way past, but yeah, as you can see, there was no one really in the background. I believe another Fury came second with, I think, a Mercury Coupe in third, if I have remembered that particular race. For me, I was very much in lots and lots of action for this final lap, wanting to make up. I wanted to try and get to a 5th place here as we run down towards the hairpin for the final time. The Fury ahead goes very defensive, so I have no other option but to try and brave the outside, and there was enough grip in my Bel Air to make it stick. A Country Squire was around the outside of another Bel Air behind us as we run into this final corner. I'm up the inside. The Fury isn't going to be able to fight it, not when I have as much grip as I do. The car ahead of me in 4th was sliding massively through this final corner. I get a huge drive out of here, but it's not enough. The Fury ahead would keep hold of his position. I would have to settle for 5th in again, another very exciting race. And to finish it off, we went to the Silverstone International Circuit in the pouring rain because, well, they are landships. We might as well have some rain. And Mercury up ahead of me got very sideways across the puddles. It's still struggling. You don't want to get caught on the puddles by the start line here. They were not particularly fun things to be driving across, and not with the best of cars, let alone with these. I get myself into big bits of trouble trying to go around the outside of some cars. I got wheels on the grass. I'm amazed I got that stopped. I was fully prepared for things about to go really wrong for me in all of that, but the brakes were good enough on the Bel Air that I could get it stopped, and then it's just solid 2, 3 in the end. There's a Plymouth on the outside. There's just not enough space. So many cars are again trying to get through these corners. A lot of vehicles going side by side as we now run onto this back straight. Got to be again wary of the puddles down here. You'll see a few cars hitting the puddles and suddenly get flicked sideways into the vehicles that are alongside them. I was up the inside of some cars. What position you were in changed so quickly in this group. Again, I found myself fighting the Turquoise Country Squire. There were Furies around as I've now got myself stuck on the outside, but it's so crowded down here, trying to spot braking zones. I mean, nobody really knows where the braking zones were with these cars in the wet, just trying to get everything slowed down, trying to even just see where there were cars. When you got these vehicles so close up ahead of you, your visibility is terrible. You got rain going on as well. It's crazy opening lap. But on the most part, we all get through it relatively well. I'm watching a Mercury and a Ford go side by side into turn 1. I'm seeing, can I make up any positions through here if I get a good run? You're just constantly trying to overtake, and especially I started at the back of this one. You want to be making up as many positions as you can early on. At the front, it was a four-way battle for the lead on this on these opening laps, with a Fury leading the way, 2 Bel Airs behind, and another Fury in fourth, all of them vying for the lead. But of course, all of these cars built very differently. Some of them the more power builds, some of them more handling builds, so they had their own specialities and bits of the track that they were good at and bits of the tracks that they weren't so good at. The Fury here managing to just get a little bit of a gap, just pulling out a little bit of the lead as the Bel Airs are fighting with one another as one's out across the curb. The other Fury's now joining in. Certainly, if you could pull a gap at the front, you stood a good chance of running away while the rest of the field were squabbling. But that was quite hard to do sometimes, especially when you had so many cars around you. Again, it was another similar story for the mid-pack. Everybody was very close together. Everybody was trying to find a way past one another. And on the whole, the racing was really rather good as we're now again side by side down this back straight. Yeah, these are not the normal sort of vehicles that you would see racing, but they were certainly holding their own around here. The Turquoise Bel Air trying to go around the outside and just about managed to keep his car alongside. He's going to get the inside for this next corner. If the Fury can keep it out wide, you can sometimes get away. They just don't quite have the grip. The pair of them touch and go a little bit sideways, and in the end, the Fury can't quite hold on to that one. The more side-by-side action for vehicles this time ahead of me as a Fury is trying to get past the Country Squire. Can't quite make it stick around that particular corner. Again, they're going to have a look trying to get past. Turn 1 is a really awkward place to try and get a pass done. It's really awkward corner for overtakes, and the Fury was a little slow. He compromised himself trying to get past the Country Squire. I saw if I could make the most of it. I couldn't. I ended up getting slowed down trying to pass the Fury. Now there's another estate car going up alongside me as we go side by side down towards the long straight. I'm stuck going around the outside of the Ford. I do have the grip in the Bel Air, and I do, fortunately for me, have the straight line speed as well, even if I get my... See how much the cars just get tipped sideways as you try and get on that power down here with all of the puddles. You really got to avoid them. But yeah, the Fords were just, most of them was just struggling for that bit of straight line speed, making it relatively easy for me to keep ahead. But yeah, there was certainly plenty of cars in close proximity to one another as I found myself racing these estate cars for a large part of the race. This time around the outside down towards turn 1, but don't really want to shut the door on the country boat, so got to leave it some space on the inside, and I'm running a little bit wide trying to find some grip out there. It just isn't. The estate car is back ahead, and there's a Fury that wasn't far behind me, so I've got to be careful not to go too aggressive trying to make a manoeuvre stick. In the end, the Ford pushes his luck a little too much, runs that bit wide, is across the puddle. That'll give me the traction out of the corner. I can get up alongside. I'll be on the inside coming on to the straight, and then make the most of my speed advantage over the Country Squire. He braved it around the outside. He did keep it there alongside, but just lacked that straight line speed to fend off the Bel Air. Certainly my Bel Air wasn't a particularly quick car overall, overall for the straight line speed, but it was enough to get past the slower cars, and it was very good through the corners. This was a bit further back, and still they were all going at it for whatever position you were in. Everybody was fighting very hard this country squire getting a big slide coming on to the straight as he fights with an Impala. And Mercury Coupe is now coming to joining. They were battling with the pink, I think it's a Pink Fury up ahead, as Pink Fury is going side by side with an Impala. The red Impala, big slide across the puddle. You can see how much just a couple of quarters of battling will cost you in relation to the cars ahead of you and around you and so on. The Mercury's up the inside. The Impala didn't fancy going around the outside, and let's face it, he was all crossed up across the puddle. Tries to cut back to the inside as well. The Mercury's on the outside. Got to be aware of the puddles out there. It's easy to outbrake yourself. Mercury just gets it stopped, but he runs across the curb. A big two-wheel moment for the Coupe would put the Ford back at the head of this group. I think the Impala would get past as well, just about there side by side through that final corner as well. It was kind of inevitable that somebody was going to end up on their roof, and the Mercuries were very, very prone to rolling. This one, I think, was running about 4th at this time, no, 5th in the race, when he hit the curb at turn 1, and sure enough, that sent the Coupe rolling over. Car behind, the Impala behind, had to take quite late avoiding action, ended up jumping across the track at that turn 1 there, just to try and avoid the rolling car. It cost the Impala a couple of places trying to avoid the Mercury. The Mercury amazingly kept going. He didn't suffer too much damage from that rollover. Would get passed by a Fury, and as we come on to the straight, you could tell the damage was done to the Mercury. It was lacking a lot of straight line speed now, ruined aero on the car. But yeah, to keep going from such an impressive roll is certainly not too bad. And again, we go back to towards the front now. The group did spread out a little bit between the Fury that was leading and the two Bel Airs that were giving chase. The Bel Airs were very, very different cars. The one in second, much more of a straight line speed car, very, very quick down this long straight, and would catch up to the Fury down here. Whereas the Bel Air in third, much more of a handling build, much more like my Bel Air, to be honest, around here, was doing better through the corners, but in the end, none of them could really overtake one another. So it would be the Plymouth that would go on to take victory after a rather busy opening couple of laps, fending off the Bel Airs. He managed to get that little bit of a gap so that the Bel Airs couldn't catch him on the straight, so they couldn't really challenge. They were always there, though. You couldn't afford to make any mistakes with these cars, otherwise 1 or 2 or 4 cars would end up going past. They certainly kept him honest, but yeah, in the end it would be the Fury that would go on to take a victory. Bel Airs second and third. I think a Fury in 4th, and it might have been Bel Airs in 5th, maybe even 6th. In general, the Furies did win all 3 races in this one. The Bel Airs definitely showed up very, very well. Also, I think I probably could have won Laguna if I could have found a bloody way past, and that's in that first race. Certainly, the Furies and the Bel Airs were the cars to have. It seemed the Impala and the Country Squire was lacking a little bit of straight line speed. The Impala just wasn't quite, it didn't seem to go quite as well, perhaps through the corners. But it was a lot of fun. Whatever car you were driving, whichever race you were in, there was a huge amount of close action with these vehicles. I mean, we often say that these improbable race cars, these cars that you don't normally see go racing, when you put them together, you get some incredible racing. And this lot certainly were an awful lot of fun. There was the odd bumpings here and there. When you have such long, huge vehicles going through some of the hairpins, when it's all concertinaing up on the opening laps, it's perhaps not too surprising. But once you got out of that, I mean, there were some huge trains going on. I had a huge amount of fun with these vehicles. Certainly, the racing was really rather close. And my Bel Air was a stupidly fast C-Class car. I think it may well be one of my C-Class vehicles of choice. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.